And welcome back to another edition of Official Word Sports. I'm Vince, and I'm here with my co-host Stevie D. And Stevie D, this is a somber podcast, right? I'd love to be jumping up and down talking about what a great game the Bills had, or what a great game the Jets had, or anything else along those lines. But this one this one hits pretty hard, right? And it hits hard because we lost a legend, we lost an icon, and really, some could say Hallis, some could say Lombardi, but truly, if you look at it, the father of modern football, John Madden. We lost. Uh, Madden means a lot to the game of football, and if people even try to question it, it goes back to the Miller Lite commercials. Remember the old Miller Lite commercials, and Madden busted through the wall, right? And he was able to transcend, the multiple eras that you had, right? The 70s with his Raiders, the 80s and 90s with his broadcasting, and then of course, uh, hey Dana, and then of course he was able to bring in the younger generation, right? That younger generation through the video game platforms, right? And coming out with um, you know Madden football on, and we go back, right, all the way back to the DOS version on the PC, and then the Sega Genesis. I tell you, and I'm not going to go into the story. I remember that when Sega first came out, I had to get Sega because there was Madden football. Right? Forget Sega. I was a Nintendo guy, right? But when Sega came out with that, Nintendo was done,
Yeah.
right? And, and here I am going to get the Sega Genesis, and it's really sad. Um, it really is sad because um, all that he gave to the game. Did you know that he was the first to use the telestrator
Yeah.
in modern sports?
He's
Right?
forever changed football. I mean, you love saying back, forward, back, forward, back. I mean, over and over and over again. I mean, that's what I remember. And making all the circles, the circle here, the circle there, right? And we go boom, right? And then all of that. And it's just, I
The
mean,
the
the guy was
infamous
just
the
unbelievable.
infamous telestrator drawing. You can look it up.
I just remember a circle here, a circle there, a circle here, right? And you do it, and then this guy goes here, and this guy, and you get. I'm like, okay, coach, all right. You say
But
so.
but he had the one where he did the circle here, and he did the circle here, and then he had the guy that went up and he came back down. And I'm just gonna I'll let our audience just look for John Madden Telestrator, and you'll see the one that I'm talking about. Infamous on live TV.
Think about it. The company that created that, their stock went up.
Yeah,
Madden says it, and everybody's buying it. All the colleges now have it, and it's just people have it for their homes now. Athletes buy it for their house because when you see a guy like that doing, maybe I should get it for my house. I can check out like for different sports, right? Not just for football, but
yeah.
I mean, Madden is just like it's like
Hey Jerry, how are you? Yep,
Terry. It's like losing like an honorary grandfather,
it is.
right? It's just bizarre. I never saw him coach. I mean, I was alive with his coach, but I was too young. I wouldn't, I never would have seen him on the sideline. But when I got to that age where it's really watching football, I kind of understood it. And you had, for me, it was Summerall and Madden was the nirvana when it comes to broadcasting. And it was like, now, unfortunately, being an AFC guy, the Jets were on NBC growing up, and the NFC, which was CBS at the time,
But wait,
had John Madden, Pat Summerall.
more than the Jets were on NBC. Just for clarification, I don't want you to think that just like Notre Dame is on NBC, that just the Jets were on.
No, the AFC teams,
Thank
right,
you.
were on
Right,
NBC. Does that help better? Okay. so, for me, it was like the Jets never there. And plus, the Jets were really never good enough that they were never that headline inner, conference matchup where the Jets were good enough to say, well, we got the top NFC team. Well, we're going to put Madden and Summerall on this particular game, right? So it was,
That was
I never really got it. I remember one game later on in his career where the Jets got it, but I just remember I wish the Jets get, because back then it's not like you had the internet. You didn't know who was calling the games that week until you got to the kickoff, right?
Oh,
so,
everything was calling the NFC games. If it was Dallas, if it was Philly, if it was Chicago, if it was San Francisco, it was Madden and Summerall. You knew that.
Well, and the Giants got a lot of Madden, right? They're in the mid '80s to late when they with Lawrence Taylor and Bill Parcells. That was a big draw there for Madden and Summerall. With Summerall playing for the New York Giants, if I remember correctly, right? Place kicker. Was he punter? I thought he was a place kicker.
He was one of the two.
But either way, it was just. I mean, that's what I remembered, obviously. And then the video game came out. You touched on the video game. Like, one of my things is putting $10. Like back in the 1990, $10 for me was like, oh my God, right? It was like that was a lot of money back then. So we'd all throw $10, put all the teams in the hat, and pray they didn't get stuck with the Indianapolis Colts, right? Because it was so bad. I got stuck with the Colts a couple of times. The teams was your team in Madden. There was two teams, and I know Jay's going to love hearing this. It was the Eagles with Cunningham, and that Eagles defense was ridiculously good and fast. And it was the Buffalo offense. Thurman Thomas was unstoppable in the early stages of Madden. You give it to Thurman Thomas, you were gone. And so when you pick the teams in the hat, if you didn't come out with the Eagles and Buffaloes, you weren't coming out with that prize money at the end. It just didn't happen. I got stuck with the Colts a couple of times, but
see that's your hate for the Buffalo Bills, and maybe that's what's carried forward. Stevie D, I do want to go back.
Just everything's went flying out. Thank God I didn't have water in my mouth. It went flying everywhere.
I do want to go. I mean, and it's crazy because we had talked about, and we're still going to do it. Kind of rank the broadcasters, right? Because especially my hatred for Al Michaels, he would go way down on my list. But I will forever be just in love. I couldn't wait to listen. I mean, the iconic sounds of Pat Summerall, right? Pat didn't say a lot, right? Because Madden would jump in. And when you talk about true color, right, Madden would take over for that whole 40 seconds. And then Summerall would say, Thurman Thomas for 3 yards. And then Madden would just take over again, right? And but to listen to those two, I mean, they worked so well, right? So well. It was a great partnership, and obviously they were great friends off air. Go ahead.
So, can you name two guys that were in a booth that did the color and the play-by-play that were not associated with football? Like you always have the one guy that was the typical studio guy paired with a former player. Madden didn't play, but he coached it, and Summerall played it. I don't know of another tandem that both of them were tied.
Oh, there's Dana. Yeah, he was taught a lesson this past weekend to never talk about how well a team is doing during a game. Lesson learned. Yeah, I received a text message from Dana that went unresponded to, and then promptly on Monday morning we had a conversation.
Dana. Let me tell you, I've from a personal standpoint, I tell people if you're gonna dare call me during a game, whether it was Yankees or Jets, you got the commercial break, so you better hurry up and time it when it goes to, because you got 2.5 minutes. Because when the game is on, the phone gets hung up. I remember vividly one time watching the Yankees. I'm going to digress here for a second. Give me a second here because this is funny. Is that watching the Yankees-Indians playoff game and at my parents' house, and the phone rings. And my mom goes to answer the phone. I said, what are you doing? The game is on. Like, I'm getting, really upset, right? The game is on. I'm like, how dare you answer the phone? She picks up the phone. I said, you hang up that phone. She hangs up the phone. She hangs it back up. Next day to come find it's one of her clients. She did real estate. It was one of her clients calling in. Her client. But again, it's game time. It is game time. You got to be all focused, all in. So Dana, you learn. But you know what they say?
But there's more to it, Stevie.
Well, of course, it's always
This
more.
was a text message that said, "Hey, you guys are doing really well." What? Oh, 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 you can't do that.
Yeah,
And this is first quarter. This was first quarter. It's not like 2 minutes to go in the game where some people will kind of say, "Okay, let's open it up." Oh no, no.
yeah, we've had some interesting chats this year in our OWS chat with Jay and JB, where that game, like you've been there, where everybody's talking crap about Buffalo or whatnot, and your radio is silent, right? Then all of a sudden you'll hear from Vince when the game is over. Then you start chatting in on other things that are going on. But when that game is on, whoo, yeah, not good.
Yeah,
Not good.
no, it's and you know what? Me a couple here. I should have had my phone turned off.
No,
That,
you can't have your phone turned off.
yeah, then but all right.
It's important to train, right? I mean, look at the value you just gave Dana.
Well, true, very true, very true, and he's a better person for it.
Yes, sure.
But yeah, so you were saying about guys in the booth that have never played the game. It's a rare commodity for, especially for the color guys, right? You had
That's what's so special about it.
Yeah, Dennis Miller and ABC tried that failed attempt. They tried Frank Caliendo in there, and that was a failed attempt. Having the guy with the background in the sport is key, right? Because they're the ones that are telling you all of the intricacies that are going on, things that some of the common fans just don't pick up or can't see. They're able to see some of the routes. I think Romo, when he first came out, there was a little bit of allure, a little bit of love with how he was able to kind of predict or project what the play was going to be. But that's kind of gotten old.
Yeah. I'm not a Romo guy anymore.
No. But if we go back to the '80s, right, and really that's where I remember, for sure, if you look at the pantheon right there at the top, it was Summerall and Madden. Below that would have been, to me, Cricky and Trumpy. Again, being an AFC guy, right? It was Cricky and Trumpy, and those guys always called the big ones. And then Dick Imberg. There's another name that was a bust. Tony Kornheiser, absolutely.
Tony Kornheiser.
He was,
oh God.
But then Dick Enberg, right? He was good. Dan Deerdorf, not a big fan, but he was okay, right? It was Deerdorf and Gumble, right? That would call those.
I was not a fan of Dan Fouts ever. Never a fan of Dan Fouts.
But see, he became. If we could stop, if we could stop right around that 92, 93 type year, right? And anybody before them, great. Anybody after that, were all the networks trying to grasp at straws, like the Tony Kornheiser, like you mentioned, like the Dennis Miller, like the Frank Caliendo. These guys are not made for the booth. And the guys that you have there now, no disrespect to any of them, Al Michaels being the worst. They're not good. I desperately want to hear Peyton in the booth. I think Peyton would be good, but Peyton may, his stick may run short, right? Madden was just going back to Madden, he was just classic. The way he said things, the way he just mangled the English language, it just put stuff together, and it would just come out like his turducken. Right? You just put it all together in there, and then you boom, right? There you go.
And boom, right? I mean, look, there's so much Madden, right? We talked about it last night. Pro Bowl. Everybody likes the Pro Bowl, but for me, did a Jet make the All Madden team? That was the most important thing. Did you make the All Madden team?
Absolutely.
Ice Cube, in an interview years back, said this. I heard him say it, and I want to make sure I give him credit because he's the only person I heard him say this out in public. Is that when you talk about video games, who talks about saying I'm going to go play the football game? People say I'm just going to go play Madden, right? It's not I'm going to play a football game. I'm playing Madden, right? It's just that's a good point by James, right?
Yeah.
Yes, he did. It's just I'm going to go play Madden. I mean, we talked about this. I mean, every game, then you think of all the major sports, FIFA soccer, right? And NHL 2K or NHA 24, 22, whatever the number is, right? NBA. There is no NFL Madden. It's just called Madden.
Well, here was the beginning. Remember this?
EA Sports. It's in the game.
I mean, when you heard that
I mean, that doesn't get you going right now. I want to pick up the joystick and go, right?
But think about this, and I'll let you continue to your point. But think about that. When you hear that, it is synonymous with every sports game for EA, right? For all of them. But when you really hear that, there's only one game that speaks to, and that's Madden. That was the first, and that will forever be, right, the centerpiece of EA Sports gaming. Now, you may be a footballer and like FIFA, or you may like NHL, but no, when you hear that, that is. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, the midnight opening started because the Madden fanatics had to get the game as early as they could possibly get it. And in GameStops and EB Games would open up at midnight at 12:01. So folks like us would go and get it at 12:01 because we had to have it at that point in time. We couldn't wait, because working, right? At that point, we were adults at that point, so we were working during the day, but we had to get it, that night so we can play it, before we go to work.
I remember us being on the phone. Okay, did you get it loaded up? Yep, I'm here. Are you on All Pro? Yeah, I'm on All Pro. Okay. What do you think about the graphics?
Right. We're breaking everything down. Right. Yeah.
Wanted to see what it was. Actually, it's funny that if Gerald is still with us, when in 1990, when Genesis first came out, I don't know, again, if Gerald's still with us. When I took the trip, I didn't have a car in college, so I had to take the MARTA in Atlanta, went downtown, picked up Sega Genesis. But now I got to walk back with the Sega Genesis, right? And the box was like bigger than the whole screen that we have here, right? Monsters. And so here I am. And yep, he remembers it. So here I am, getting off the MARTA, walking with this thing, walking down, I think it was like Lee Street or Ashley, just taking this hike to get back to the dorm. Yes, he does remember it because, yes, it did go on. Again, I'm a struggling college student. Yes, it did go on. I decide, there's so many stories that go with this, right? You're in school. They're vultures. You guys are vultures. I'm speaking to all these department stores and all these credit card companies trying to swindle these young, starving college students, right? Get this credit card, right? And we'll give you a free water bottle. I was more interested in the water bottle. Truth be told, I needed to have the water bottle. But now I have this credit card, and there's a commercial for men. It's like the next day I was out to go get it. Honestly, and it's a sad thing to say, that my reign in getting Madden on the first day, or even getting Madden at all, came to an end in 2021. You know how they have in memoriam and people we've lost, right? And they show everything. Well, you can put up there the picture of me in the Madden game stack that I have, because that came to an end this year. It came to an end. I've reached. I got to the middle point, and now I'm on the other side. And being on the other side, things are different perspective, right? What did I get this year? We went more for lawn and garden. So instead of video games, we went lawn and garden. But Stevie D,
wait, before you go, before we change the page on Madden.
Well, we're not. I want to show you something, but go ahead.
Okay. So, do you remember I had a training in Arizona? Yeah. Right when Madden was coming out. So, I go on this business trip for 5 days to Arizona. I buy Madden. I bring my PlayStation with me. I get to the hotel. The back of the TV's got no ports to plug in the RCA's.
Help me on that.
All right. There's no RCA's on the back of the TV. What? Not that, I mean, I've traveled before. I never looked at the back of a TV. I go in there. I never heard of a TV not having any RCA's on the back, right? It must have been like the made specially for the hotels. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So I went down to the store and I bought a TV. Yes, folks, I bought a TV. I found one on clearance. I bought it. I brought it back. It was a little TV. I put it on the bed. So, man, that was great. I was laying in bed and had the TV right next to me and played Madden. And then the night, the night before, I left, returned that TV back to the store, got on a plane, went home.
Didn't we have a business trip in Kansas where we brought the PlayStation or something?
Yeah, of course we did. I mean, it was not yes, I couldn't tell you the year because
we had to finagle something as well to get that to go. It was just being, we were Madden heads. I mean, we really did. But when we speak about Madden, there is one thing that it goes down in classic moments. Almost like everything that he says. But let me show you this DVD.
Will live forever, but when you really think about it, we're not going to be. But I say this, and this is overwhelming and mind-blowing, that through this bust, with these guys in that hall, we will be forever. And when you think of that, it just blows your mind that it's forever and ever and ever. And you have to stay with me a moment on this one. This is a little goofy here, and you're going to say, oh, there's old Madden being goofy again. But I started thinking about this after I got voted into the Hall of Fame. And the more I think about it, the more I think it's true. And now I know it's true and I believe it. Here's the deal. I think over in the Hall of Fame that during the day, the people go through and they look at everything. And then at night, there's a time when they all leave. And all the fans and all the visitors leave the Hall of Fame. Then there's just the workers. And the workers start to leave. And then it gets down, there's just one person. And that person turns out the light, locks the door. I believe that the busts talk to each other. And I can't wait for that conversation. I really can't. To Vince LaBarge, to Newt Rockney, to Reggie, to Walter Payton, to the guys that you want to say, to all my players, my ex-players, we'll be there forever and ever and ever.
So Stevie D, that's just a little clip from the Madden Hall of Fame. I think it was 2006, the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And obviously, we have to give special thanks to NFL Network, NFL Films, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame for making that clip available. But he's right. He's right. I don't know if you've been to the Hall of Fame, and for those of you who have, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is a special place. It's smaller than I ever expected. And, I know when I walked in there, and at first I was like, is this it? Right?
Am I off Broadway here? Right.
I expected, just this huge megaplex, right? But it wasn't. But what it was just jam-packed with just history. And you could, in a sense, you get a feeling, of just all that transpired. They had, a section where it had, like the Canton Bulldogs, and then you had Jim Thorpe, and then you had another area, and it just kind of started to go through the timeline. And of course, obviously, I was really more focused on where my Buffalo Bills, right? And you kind of look at some of the just the different areas and the videos that they would have, and once you got to where the busts were, and that's pretty legit, right? Just to see all those busts that are in there, and it just to his point, It has to be special when they turn the lights out, right? It just has to be special. Where we haven't heard from Madden in a long time. Whether it be on air or anything else, and so it still is going to be hard not to imagine hearing Madden tell some of the stories, right? Obviously, not doing the play-by-play and getting up in age, but he will be missed, and as I said, he is one of the greats. He is one of the forefathers of just the NFL that we know today.
Yeah, I think he's going to be missed on the rule changes and just how the NFL reaches out to him to get opinions on this or that for the moving the game forward. Just having that voice in there saying good or bad. I think he's set back some things that the NFL wanted to do, and I think there's some things that he didn't want the NFL to do. So he had that big voice in the room, and when he spoke, everybody would listen. So we lost an icon even behind the scenes to better the game. So
Very true. Very true.
Just sad.
So, Stevie D, this past week, interesting week in the NFL. A lot of teams are vying for, this whole in the hunt thing is driving me nuts, right? It is driving me nuts because the in the hunt list is what, there's 16 teams in a conference?
There's only 3 teams that are not in the hunt.
Right. When you look at it, you got the 7 that are in, and that leaves 9. But the list is like, well, even you guys were still in the hunt up to like 2 weeks ago. Hey, the only thing that wasn't in the hunt was Jacksonville, right? And it's not shrinking because some of these teams are not doing what they're supposed to do. Los Angeles, how the Chargers got beat is beyond me.
That Charging game, this is what drives me nuts about analysts. So they're trying to make excuses of why the Chargers lost. Well, they didn't have Eckler, and they didn't have this player. Or I think they said Darwin James, the safety there, and then I think somebody else was out. And it's like you can't give the Chargers an excuse. One, the backup running back scored 2 touchdowns and was a beast.
Balled out.
Right? So you can't use that as an excuse. Derwin James, next man up, right? They used to play without James. Let's face it, great talent, but he's been hurt for so long, for so many years now. The last 3 years, he's missed games. So great talent, but he's not on the field all the time. So, I just don't like when people use those excuses on why they lost the game. And it's like, you know what? That's called better coaching and next man up mentality, and people need to step up and play better. So
we'll talk about that.
Oh yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, well, I called you on that one. I was really confused on that whole scenario. But I just don't like when people say, "Well, they're giving him a pass." Well, how about all the other teams that are banged up? Nobody talks about those teams and why they're not winning games because of injury. So I can't use that as an excuse why you're losing. And honestly, it wasn't like your whole team was decimated with injuries. So that's just a horrible loss by the Chargers. And hopefully they'll grow and learn from it, but it really hurts them in their playoff chances.
It does. It muddies everything. But there was the one game that, of any game that should have been flexed, and it's not because I'm a part of Bills Mafia and I love the Bills, but it's that Bills Pats game. That had everything, right? The only thing that game didn't have is that it wasn't, week 18. Because you had the division on the line, right? The Bills owned the tiebreaker against the Patriots. They lost that game 2 weeks prior, which was the win, the 45-mile-per-hour win, right? Where Mac Jones only throws the ball 3 times. Where I blame the Bills coaching for losing that game. But still, that gave the Patriots the one-up, really, in the division. Now it's do or die, right? If Buffalo loses this game, they're hanging by a thread. If you look at the playoff generators, they're hanging by a thread, and they need a lot of help. Buffalo wins the game, they take control of the division, and every given Sunday, we'll go through all of that, but on paper, it looks like they have winnable games that will give them the division. So it had everything, and then lo and behold, leading up to that, to Lamar's point, we find out that Cole Beasley is unvaccinated, tested positive, and was going to be out of the game. And there were multiple players, John Feliciano and others, that were going to be out of that game. But it was a great game. Obviously, Patriot fans probably think a little different, but from a Bills perspective, it was a great game on both sides of the ball. Even though Damian Harris had 3 touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. This whole Mac Jones saga, love affair, right? That came to an end very quickly, right? Exposed for being a rookie quarterback, exposed for having to put the game on his shoulders and not being able to deliver, right? What we saw from Buffalo's side is actually opening the playbook, which, Stevie D, we talked about this before. And I don't know if you can really do this, and you're being really cocky if you do, but do you hold parts of your playbook for games that you have kind of highlighted throughout the season so that you don't see some of those plays?
I think they do. I think there's certain plays you hold out and you practice all week, and then you bring them out. You're right. I think it absolutely does happen. I think that's why some teams get stale with their offense, because they're not innovating during the course of the year, and teams, they pick things apart. They see something in the formation that says play, and they're able to defend it. And so if you want to be truly that offensive juggernaut, you have to adapt during the course of the season and bring in new plays. And look, I mean, McKenzie had the game, right?
Absolutely.
Kid had a game, and I think you found a new slot receiver.
Well, I really want to talk about the game, but Lamar, you brought it up. Stevie D, you alluded to it. Let the 800-pound gorilla that's in the room. Do we need to talk about it? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I've been saying for the longest time now, right? Ever since Cole Beasley decided, and Steve, you've been poking the bear a little bit. I want people to know, right? When we are not doing the podcast live, right, I get little texts. I get little messages. Man, this is going to be a real distraction.
Man, you're outing me, man. You're outing me. That ain't right.
I'm taking this personal, right? You say it in our group chat, right? Just so that everybody can pile on, right? I'm being attacked. But you're right. And I haven't disagreed, right? And from day one, I was like, this is ridiculous. Because you got so close last year, right? You got so close. And you can see where it's kind of a maturation process. It's a stair step, right? Every team has to learn how to win first, right? Then they have to learn how to win against the good teams. Then you have to learn how to win when it comes to, the playoffs and the postseason. And then once you get there, you keep taking these stair steps until you're ready. And once you're ready, right, then you go to the exhibition game, and then all bets are off, right? And so when I look at where Buffalo was last year, they made it so close, but they came back with the hunger, right? You have the infamous pitcher, Stephon Diggs, just standing there all by himself on the sideline watching the celebration, right? Fueling that he was just being refueled with that fire, so that he knew that coming into the 2021 season, right? You look at what, and I don't agree with some of the moves, but you look at what Brandon Beane did, right? He said, we're going to bring back this roster, and we're just going to tweak. Well, I think some of the tweaks needed to be a little bit better, but we're just going to tweak. In their mind, they're at the precipice of taking that next step, right? And so now we get to training camp, and now you have the antagonist. And he's your guy, is the antagonist, right? Going to social media, going to Twitter, talking about, well, I'm not vaccinated. I don't believe in this. You can't put this in my body, and you can't do this, and you can't do that.
And there was my text. Oh, boy, there's your distraction you don't need. I mean, I hopped right on that one.
You did. Yeah. And, I'm not here to talk about getting the vax or not getting the vax. I'm not here to talk about it. What I am here to talk about is that there's rules, right? And if the rules say that first of all, the league says you have options, you have choices. You don't have to get vaccinated. But if you don't, then you fall into this category and here are the guidelines, and here are the rules that you have got to follow. Right? That's it. That's it. And from Lamar, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, they've known that he wasn't
Hey,
vaccinated.
put that back up. I didn't get to finish reading it.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so you knew that he wasn't. But what did they ask you? They told you wear the mask. When you are in the facility, you have to wear the mask. Well, he and McKenzie got fined during training camp because they weren't wearing the mask and they were flaunting it. To the point when the NFL league officials were there at the team's facility during training camp, you're still all cavalier walking around without the mask. Again, it's your choice, but follow the rules. Look at the big prize.
Yeah, but I'll even take it a step further. I blame the position coaches. I blame the head coaches. I blame the GM. Anybody that's an authority in the organization. And it's not just the Buffalo Bills. It's the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers, right? So no, I mean, there's no pass. It's any organization. We're just happen to be talking about Cole and Buffalo, but it's any other team that allows the athlete to think they're above everything and allow them to break rules and not holding them accountable. You can absolutely hold them accountable. And you know what? If you have to put them on a suspension list, your own suspension list, right? That was a conduct detrimental to the team. Then they have to sit out, and then they lose that game check. And that game check's a lot larger than getting the fines, right? So at the end of the day, just do what the rules ask and do what's right for your teammates. I mean, because at some point, if you're a team player, shouldn't you at least be doing it for your teammates?
That has been my point all along, right? And if you look at the New Orleans Saints, that there is no other example of how your team, your season can be jeopardized. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not here to say that a player can't get. Yeah, I'm not here for that discussion, right? But just look at what happened. They had to start Ian Book, right? Who came off of some practice squad, off of some other practice squad, and they had to just throw him in to be the quarterback. And it was an absolute disaster. I mean, a complete and utter disaster. This kid was I'd like to say that I could have done a better job, right? But this kid, I couldn't have, right? And he was way out of his league.
You know what? You're right. And I'm going to take a slight time out because he was absolutely overwhelmed. But he gets to say he played an NFL game. So no matter how wonky and crazy it was, he's got to start that he's played in the NFL because he would have never gotten a shot in the NFL, probably.
Absolutely. So, but he was in there because potentially, they were not adhering to the rules that they needed to, right? But going back to Beasley, you know that you have to do these things, and you didn't do it. So you got fined $14,000 early on, and it goes up. I believe that the fines doubled, right? So then it would have been the next time a 28, and then the next time maybe a 56. Not sure, but it supposedly they incrementally go up. For him to already be at 100,000, right, means that all throughout he doesn't care what's going on. Your interests are not that of the Buffalo Bills. Your interests are that of Cole Beasley. And if that's the case, I don't want you on the team. I don't.
You're not a team player.
On the team.
You're not a team player.
And you thought your value was bigger than what it was. People had already talked about, the transition plan because Beasley came in with John Brown. John Brown's gone. Beasley, they liked him in the slot. He kind of adapted well. But there were rumors already, some whispers about Isaiah McKenzie, right? Which is an odd thing. But then they also drafted Marquez Stevenson, who also can fit in that role. So you are not indispensable. We can get rid of you and plug and play with another guy. And lo and behold, what did we get? We got 11 catches on 12 targets. We got 100-plus yards. We got a touchdown. We got a guy that was able to run some jet sweeps, right? Something that you really can't do, Cole Beasley. And so now your value has dropped. And now you start looking at it. I said it before. I'm saying it again. And even with the report of the fines coming out, get out. Get out. And really, Stevie D, I mean get out now because we still have an objective. And you haven't changed, right? You actually probably feel more empowered with the restrictions or the governor being taken off of being able to return to games after positive tests. You feel more emboldened. I don't want you there because you could potentially you could get Diggs, you
Sure.
could get Davis, you could get Sanders, you could get Knox, you could get Allen. And now what am I left with? Well, what could have been? What maybe would have been?
Well,
No, get him out.
your PSA's got to be directed to Brandon Bean and Sean McDermott, right? Or Terry Pagula, right? The owner. I mean, that's your PSA right there because this guy can't take you down, right? And I know they've now laxed the rules now and they've changed certain things around to make easier for players to get back because now all the NFL cares about is they're realizing that the talent not on the field is hurting the game, and so now they're adjusting their rules because it suits them, right? Not the health and safety of players. It suits the NFL. Like the Jets, yeah, the Jets are a bad football team, right? They're rebuilding, and it's going to take a few years, and hopefully they'll continue to trend upward. Jets were missing 21 players. 21 players in that game played. Okay, 20. Let that sink in. That 21 players did not suit up, but that they played. It didn't get flexed. So now I obviously they had enough players to play the game. They got through it and they wound up winning the football game. But when you think about it, why wasn't that game canceled? Why wouldn't the Jets have to forfeit that game? You had 21 players out. How do I know you're not going to get other players sick on the Jets or on the other team in the trenches? There's all the spit flying in the trenches and all that stuff. How do you know you're not going to get somebody else sick and spread it even worse? So it's.
Look, I think Lamar wants to play for
We'll take you, buddy. We'll take you. You're in better shape than probably 2/3 of the team. So it's just I don't like the way they handled it. I thought the Jets should have had a forfeit, and that's just the way it should have been.
Yeah, and again, Roger Goodell and the NFL, speaking out of both sides. We talked about this last week. They come out with these big statements that they think that a certain group wants to hear. The other side, the owners and the sponsors, are saying that's not what we want to hear. We need these guys on the field, right? And I think they were riding that very fine line, and they thought they were going to get through it. And then Omicron, or whatever you want to call it, comes through it, and now all of a sudden they have to make some tough decisions. And what do? They kind of still are trying to play the middle, right?
Right.
And they're easing back a little bit, saying, well, now it's not 10 days, it's 5 days, right? And there's so much about this that we don't know. It's very hard, but if you're setting rules based off of the health and safety of the players, then why are you reversing it? And plus, why are you reversing mid-season? That should be something that is done after, because this is what I told you the other day, is the fact of when we look at Carson Wentz, right? Carson Wentz was or is unvaccinated and had tested positive, which meant he was going to miss 2 games.
Because of the timing of when he tested positive, of the 10 days it would take him out the last 2 games.
He's going to miss 2 games. Those 2 games could potentially impact the Colts' playoff chances, right? I don't know who the backup is. And yes, you have Jonathan Taylor. And as long as you have Jonathan Taylor, you have a fighting shot. But you run that risk, right? Now the rule has changed, and so now he's only going to miss 1 game, right? So now, if I look at some of the other teams and I go back to the Saints game, right? I look at the Saints because that was the most egregious one. I'm not saying that they would have beat the Dolphins, but they would have stood a shot because the Saints defense is pretty legit.
Yes, yeah.
Pretty legit. And all they needed was just something, right? They just needed something. And if that rule change had been a week prior, maybe you have a different outcome. So that means that there is a competitive imbalance that was given towards or advantage given towards the Colts that was taken away from other teams, right? Potentially look at the Ravens, right, and what they had going on. So, and these are teams that are in the playoff hunt.
Right.
It's not fair. And, again, it shows signs of weakness for Roger Goodell. We've talked about it year after year, show after show, the weakness of Roger Goodell. And it comes out again. So, to answer Lamar's question, though, yes, I have always been in favor of the release of Cole Beasley. Don't want a meat player, especially when you're trying to get to that exhibition game. So, Stevie D, let's talk about your boys as we segue a little bit. Let's talk about your boys. They pulled off a stunner. It was a stunner.
Honestly, I'm going to have a little bit of a joke. We beat a team that you couldn't beat.
Yes,
and
you did.
And we were missing our head coach and 21 players.
So maybe,
Right.
but the key is Sean McDermott needs to go. Thank you. Thank you.
Honestly, a lot of things were clicking for the Jets. The running game, they actually ran for the most yardage of any NFL team this year, 278 total yards rushing as a team. So obviously the rushing game was there. They didn't have to pass a lot.
Michael Carter back.
Michael Carter's back. He had a very good day. He had I think a $111. And Wilson had 92, set his franchise record for most rushing yards in a game with 92, and the longest run by a Jets quarterback in their history at 52. But really, you could talk a lot about the game. The Jets had no wide receiver. I mean, it was not a pretty game to watch, right? You watch it because you're a fan, but it's just like, oh my God. It was just trying to watch Trevor Lawrence. I just don't know what all the hype about this kid is. But I'll tell you, it came down to crunch time, okay? And this is the only part I want to cover of the game because really there's not much you really want to cover in this game, right? It's like the pillow fight. It's not a pretty game to watch, right? You got two bad teams going up against each other, and you got the 1 pick versus the 2 pick. Obviously, that had some intrigue, but poor James Robertson tore his Achilles like on the 4th play of the game. It was a non-contact. As soon as I saw him go down, I said to my son, oh, that's his Achilles. Because when the play happened, you didn't see it happen. And then they showed the replay of the play from a different angle, and you just saw him go down. And I said, oh, and he clutched, right? That's that famous clutch when you go in the back of your ankle there. And I said, oh, that's not good for him. But really, it came down to the last drive, right? The last drive of the game, Lawrence sets up, right? They go down the field. Lawrence runs for like 25 yards, gets him down to like the 6-yard line, right? So first play, they do like an out. It goes incomplete, right? It's like there's like 31 seconds left on the clock. Wait a minute. I'm going to mess this up. First down, second down. Yeah, okay, I got it. Okay. So I had to get the sequence. Age, it catches up to you. You don't think it does? It does. So first time he did the out on the first play. You would have seen what was going up in front of that camera. So he does the out for like 3 yards. It's incomplete. Second down is a pass play to Treadwell, I think number 18. CJ Mosley has the interception, but he doesn't. It literally goes right through his arms, and Treadwell catches it at the 1.5-yard line, and he gets touched. So that's the second down play. Mosley can't believe it. They're taking their time. They get up to the line. When I say they tick, 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 I mean, it was crazy. I'm like, what are they doing? What is Lawrence doing? And then he decides to spike it. Now it goes to 4th down. And you're like, okay, whoo, we get a chance to reset here, right? Because, I mean, it was a wild set of sequences for them to get down to that point of the field anyway. The Jets really couldn't catch their breath on defense. Jaguars had everything going. They had that play, the miraculous play. They were just destined to get the touchdown with no time left. And they come up to the line and take forever, and then he spikes the ball. He spikes the ball with 10 seconds left in the game. The play went off at 31 seconds. By the time they spiked it, I think it was maybe 12 seconds. And they spike it to go to fourth down. Now, all of a sudden, the Jets really get the hang back, set the defense, everybody catches a breath, and then finally we get a pass rush, which we didn't have all game. Lawrence is running, throws up a prayer as he's falling down, and it's out of bounds. And
Well, you typically find that for those Clemson ball players. I don't know if you have any insight into that one, but decision making probably is not top amongst those Clemson players. Just saying.
But I'm going to say, like, even some of the throws I watched him make, his deep ball was not very accurate. Had guys open. Couldn't hit the wide open guys downfield. I was not impressed with Lawrence. When they say that this guy's the second coming, you're going up against a team that didn't have Franklin Myers, didn't have Quinnen Williams on the defensive line. So you're missing your two studs for pass rushing. Here's
a question, Stevie D.
We had Nathan Shepard playing all game.
If you look at it, and what's going on in Duval, right? Have we reached a point now where a potential, right? And you have to use the word potential, but the potential now has been taken away because of bad coaching and because of a bad franchise. And now he's going to turn into a bust. Somebody that, if you talk to any of the experts leading into the draft or any of the experts over the last few years at Clemson, this guy was surefire.
Can't miss prospect, right?
Yes.
That's what everybody said. He was the can't miss prospect as a freshman. But I'll tell you, you're absolutely on point. We've seen it time and time again where these kids come in when they have an unstable organization from the owner down, and these kids are out of the league. And what I'll say is, if you're going to salvage this kid, I really do believe Jim Caldwell is the head coach I would hire. I would hire. He's going to bring stability there, right? I wouldn't go with a rookie coach who's never coached, right? No offense to Eric Bieniemy or anything like that, but I'm just nervous. Caldwell, he's stable. He's going to have that organization running on all cylinders, right? And it's just going to bring stability to that organization. They need it. I wouldn't go with a rookie coach that hasn't done it. You don't know what you're going to get out of a rookie coach. You just don't know. But Jim Caldwell, he took over for Dungy. He had a decent run with the Colts. He took an awful Lions team, got them to 2 playoffs, and I thought he was fired prematurely in Detroit. Maybe it's a godsend that he got out of there because it's just I feel bad for the fans of Detroit. They just can't get out of their own way. To me, Jim Caldwell's the guy that I would hire there. I think that's a good, safe choice for the Jacksonville Jaguars because I think Caldwell will steer that ship in the right direction.
Going back to the point when talking about the coach and the ownership and just the franchise as a whole, it makes you start to sit back and think, going back to maybe the John Elway, right? I'm not playing in Indianapolis. Trade me, get me out of here. Right? Or you look at the Eli Manning, right? I'm not going to your franchise, trade me, and we look at what happened there. I think that some of these top picks.
Or Peyton Manning saying, I'm staying an extra year because I don't want to be drafted by the Jets. He stayed an extra year.
Okay.
Because he didn't want to go to what was not perceived. We were a disaster then. And even though Parcells was there, he didn't want anything to do with the Jet organization. Because Archie, they're not stable.
Right.
So
sorry. You have these kids. No, you're good. You have these kids, and sometimes they have a little bit more power behind them, right? To be able to make these statements to say, I'm not going there. Right. You don't. Thank goodness it hasn't manifested itself where it's just widespread every year saying, I'm not going to play for this organization. I'm not playing for this franchise, because then that would turn the game upside down. Right. But you almost have to have some sort of a fail-safe. Right. I'm not going to play for an unstable organization. I'm not going to play for an organization that has no idea in who they're hiring as their coach, bringing in some fly-by-night coach who hires his assistants, and we didn't know back then, but then wants to blame his assistants for not. You hired them, right? And the only thing that it will do is just ruin the career, potentially the career of that individual, right? You don't have the support system And obviously, again, if you're drafted number one, there's a reason why you're drafted number one. But my career is in jeopardy here, right? And I'm putting it in your hands, Shotgun. You got to do something. And I agree with you on the Caldwell hiring. I think that would be the right hiring there. Stevie D, we're coming close to the buzzer here, and talking about matchups, we have big matchups all over the place, but the biggest matchup was in the OWSports Fantasy Football League. Now, let me set it up for all of our listeners or watchers here. Is that all throughout the year, there's been this smack talk between the Assassins team and the Jets, and that would be Stevie D with the Jets and Jay with Assassins. They've been going back and forth. Very quietly, some teams have been rising under the radar and falling under the radar, like Team Young Guns, who can't even beat in a consolation game, can't even beat a managerless team. It just, Black Monday hit, just the other day. Anyways, I digress. Very quietly, Sean's team was rising and flying under the radar, letting two teams, two franchises battle it out, right? Not saying a word, not saying anything. And then we had the championship game. And I'll let you
It was a great game. It was a great game. It was, I just like Sean, I don't know how many adjustments he had to make prior to the game. I had to make a few. One adjustment I didn't make that came to bite me in the butt, but I picked up Jackson. The night before. He went off. I know Allen had a good game for me, but I had St. John or whatever his name was from the Lions. I picked him up, and I thought I put him in, and I didn't. I left Lockett in, and
great GM forgets to put in a player. It just go sit on the bench.
Yeah, and that's I was on the fence, right? I picked him up Saturday night, and I said, okay, I'm going to go put him in, and I only think about it, and I came and I didn't think about it, and then I went to go do it before the game started, and it was too late. I was locked out. I said, son of a gun. But at the end of the day, what did it come down to? Sean's team put up.
You had a shot, though. You had a shot, and it
if we could kick a field goal. The Cowboys score 105 points and don't kick a freaking field goal. Are you kidding me?
Interestingly enough, so if we want to talk about the players, Sean's sensational team had Amari Cooper, and I'm talking to you before the game, CBD. I'm like, I know you're good, right? I'm trying to be your hype man. You got the extra points. If they get a couple plus a field goal, you're good. Well, all of a sudden you have this 3-point deficit, and you watch Dallas take all of their starters out.
Right, a Cooper goes to the bench, right? You're like, you got a chance.
You're good, right? Because you know that if they get down there, they'll just kick the field goal and just move on, right? Because you don't want to run up the score too bad, but you're down there and you got to do something. You got 15 minutes. You got 15 minutes to get this done. Dallas goes down and scores a touchdown. Like, what? Just with the backups. They scored a touchdown. I was like, oh, you're in trouble. But you're still okay. If they're running up and down, you got to get there. They never got back down for the field goal. And you lost by less than 3 points. You lost by 2.6 points. 2.4.
But here's the thing. Enough about how I lost it. Let's give Sean his credit and his due. They had a phenomenal year, and their team came in and they won. I mean, I sat down the boys at the end. I gave Zerline the stink eye. I just gave him you're telling me you couldn't tell coach to take a knee to get a field goal? It says you're done. You won't be back next year. Oh, there's gonna be changes. There's gonna be changes, but it was it is what it is. Or Amari Cooper has to get that freaking touchdown.
Yeah, they got you.
But you know what? Another successful season, another Super Bowl appearance. I fell short yet again, but it's okay. It's all right.
We do call it the Super Bowl here in fantasy.
All week I was going to say the exhibition game and the Super Bowl came out. I meant to say the exhibition game because I was going to say. So I told you what happens when you get older, you forget. And I was going to say the exhibition game. God, I was going to say the exhibition game, and I was going to say, the real game was the championship game when I demolished Jay, but I screwed it all up because I totally forgot I used the word Super Bowl. Dang it! No.
So, but no,
I
now,
set this up like 100 times in my head. I can't believe I screwed that up.
so next year there's changes. It's gonna be a little bit more competitive. All right, we're gonna start a little earlier, but it's gonna be a little bit more competitive.
You're gonna draft better?
Oh, we have big changes. Hey, you think you have changes? We already started. The GM has been fired. The head coach has been fired.
So who's going to run your team?
I have no idea.
You're going to bring a ringer from the outside to draft your team.
I am. Yep. I'm going to
You got to shake it up, man, because
that's
good to be in the bottom 2 years in a row. Have you made the playoffs yet?
No. No. And this year was just an absolute debacle. Just a complete and absolute debacle. I don't know what went on, but I can tell you that, as the owner of Team Young Guns, that's not where we believe that we should be. We don't stand for anything less than excellence, similar to Al Davis. We believe in that motto, just win, baby. And what happened and transpired over the course of this season, no excuse. We were really ready to make a change mid-season, but we realized the competitive balance of the league, may be in jeopardy. And come to find out that some members of the organization actually kind of just left because rosters weren't being adjusted. Certain free agent wire transactions were, all of this is starting to come out, right? You always find out after the fact that what was going on. So, there's big changes for Team Young Guns, maybe even a team name, may even sell the organization, may sell it and just be done with it. And it just over and done. Yeah, not happy whatsoever. So, we'll find out. But Stevie D, again, very, very sad day. When you heard the news about Madden, it reverberated all throughout. No matter what sports broadcast, no matter what television or news outlet you went to, everybody talked about it. I'm sure the NFL is going to do something. I'm sure, but knowing Roger Goodell, they're not going to do enough. And so we'll just keep championing, Madden and carrying that torch, and maybe just because of it, I'll go get Madden 22. Maybe I'll just go do that. Who knows? But it is definitely sad, and kind of remember some of the things that he said in that speech, and we'll take it from there. To all of our guests or all of the folks that join the podcast with messages and tweets, and we appreciate it. Stevie D, last show of the year.
Wow.
Last show of 2021. Right? So
think about this. I feel like 5 weeks ago we were saying we're at week 4 of the NFL, right? It's like slow it down. It's like now we only got two games left in the regular season. It's like, oh my God, where's it all gone?
We got 2 days left in 2021. 2 days. 2 days. There will be, we need to pop some champagne. Maybe we'll come back on the next, on the next podcast with a little champagne. Pop some pops. Kind of turn it up, have the hat on. Get some streamers popping up. I think it all depends what happens against the Bills and the Falcons. Again, one game at a time. Keep the eye on the prize, and let's just focus on what we have in front of us. So all I ask for, take care of business. There's from Terry. Happy New Year's to you, Terry. We appreciate
Happy New Year, Terry. Yep.
And but so for that, Stevie D. Again, thank you to everybody out there who watches, who subscribed. We thank everybody for their participation. We look forward to greater participation as we go forward. Continuing try to improve the podcast, the platform, try to make it as inclusive as possible. Lamar says, "Look out for After Dark in 2022." It's coming. It is coming, right? Yeah. You ever see a TV show or an advertisement for a TV show, but they don't tell you the release date, and they just keep letting you know that it's
Right, right.
so
This is it.
yeah. OW Sports After Dark is in production, but we haven't given the release date. And when we do, oh boy, that's gonna be special. But yeah, so we thank everybody again. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, reach out to all your friends, let them know, and we're happy and we're having a good time doing this. So for my co-host Stevie D, I'm Vince, and we'll talk to you soon.